In a fabric factory, a worker monitored a hot laminating machine to ensure the material was processing correctly. To verify the fabric surface was even, he placed his hand dangerously close to the active intake. The rotating rollers instantly caught his fingers, dragging his hand into the heated mechanism before he could pull back. His hand remained trapped and crushed between the scorching cylinders until the machine could be stopped. Rotating rollers create deadly nip points that act faster than human reflexes. Never touch moving machinery for inspections. Always rely on visual checks or fully stop the equipment first. A female worker bent underneath a table to inspect a running machine, neglecting to secure her long hair. As she leaned closer, the rotating gears instantly snagged her loose locks, violently pulling her head into the mechanism and ripping the hair from her scalp. A nearby colleague reacted quickly, shutting down the power and pulling her free from the machine before further injury occurred. Entanglement hazards happen in a split second and can cause permanent disfigurement. Always tie back long hair and wear appropriate caps or hair nets when working near rotating equipment to ensure personal safety. A man stood refueling his car, casually chatting with a passenger still seated inside. As he gripped the nozzle, a small spark of static electricity arced from his hand to the filler neck, instantly igniting the rich fuel vapors. A flash fire erupted, enveloping the pump and the side of the vehicle. Stevedores were unloading heavy cargo from a truck, maneuvering a loaded manual hydraulic lift toward the rear. As they stepped onto the extended tailgate, they relied on a structure held only by metal hinges, lacking any ground support props. Suddenly, the hinges sheared under the immense combined weight, causing the platform to collapse. The workers fell violently to the pavement, where they were instantly buried under the crashing hydraulic lift and displaced cargo. Loading gates are potential trap doors if overloaded. Always verify the weight capacity of tailgates and utilize jack stands or support legs to ensure stability during unloading. In an aluminum factory, a worker stood below to supervise the replacement of electrodes. He positioned himself directly underneath the crane to inspect the process. Suddenly, a heavy structural component detached from the crane assembly above and plummeted down. The metal part struck the worker with devastating force before he could escape. Overhead, machinery poses risks beyond just the load it carries. Always maintain a strict exclusion zone during maintenance and never stand under equipment, as loose parts create a deadly line of fire. In a small factory, a male worker went to inspect a jammed milling machine without wearing any protective gear. Believing the stoppage was minor, he reached inside while the equipment was still powered. The rotating shaft grabbed his sleeve and pulled him in, trapping his hand deep inside the mechanism with a violent twist. A nearby co-worker sprinted over, hit the emergency stop, and fought to free his hand while calling for medical support. Never reach into an active machine. Shut it down completely before any inspection or repair. A forklift operator struggled to navigate the floor with a large, unstable stack of loosely secured goods. Seeing the difficulty, a nearby worker approached the machine's path to act as a spotter. As the operator shifted into reverse to adjust his angle, the shaky stack wobbled violently. A heavy box at the top suddenly dislodged and crashed down, striking the worker who was standing dangerously close. Unsecured loads are ticking time bombs that endanger everyone nearby. A crane operator lifted loads to a staging area behind his truck, completely obstructing his view of the ground. Just as the boom swung, a worker on a motorbike drove into the blind spot. The heavy hook struck the rider's head, knocking him violently to the ground. Operating blindly invites catastrophe. Always require a signalman when line of sight is blocked and strictly barricade the crane's swing radius to keep all personnel and vehicles clear. Untrained and unauthorized employee attempted to move heavy, cold-rolled steel coils using a crane equipped with a crude, homemade hook. A man walked directly in front of a moving forklift that was heavily loaded, blocking the driver's forward view. With no clear line of sight, the operator didn't notice him crossing. The forklift kept moving and struck him, knocking him to the ground and running over his legs before the driver could brake. Maintain visible distance from forklifts and never cross their path. Limited visibility can turn a single step into disaster. A crane equipped with a man lift was transporting a worker when the worker accidentally came into contact with an overhead high-voltage power line. The worker in the basket was directly exposed to the electrical current and fell as both he and the man lift dropped to the ground. Always maintain a safe distance from all power lines and assume they are energized. Use a spotter to monitor for overhead hazards. In a steel furnace area, workers were supervising the melting process when the molten steel suddenly erupted in a violent explosion. Flames burst outward, hitting the worker closest to the furnace. He staggered away and ran toward the exit, but the fire had already burned through his clothing before others could put it out with extinguishers. Treat molten metal with maximum caution. Pressure buildup can turn into a firestorm. A worker sat working near a furnace outlet, completely neglecting to wear any protective clothing or heat-resistant gear. Suddenly, a glowing steel billet slipped from the hearth, rolled out, and struck a bucket of scalding water placed haphazardly nearby. The vessel overturned, splashing boiling liquid onto the worker. Clutter around high heat zones creates a chain reaction for disaster. Always remove loose hazards like water buckets from production floors and strictly mandate full body protection in thermal processing areas. A crane's hook, ascending high under supervision, suddenly snapped free. It plummeted, crushing the operator's cab below. The operator, caught while trying to escape, was fatally struck. When heavy machinery is in use, the smallest point of failure can have the most devastating consequences. Always check load limits. A forklift truck carrying a large stack of bags in a warehouse accidentally ran over a woman who was talking nearby. She was standing in the truck's blind spot, an area that was obscured by the large load of bags. Always be aware of vehicle blind spots, especially on forklifts with large loads. Ignoring strict fire protocols, a worker took an unauthorized smoke break inside the warehouse, sitting just inches from dry inventory. As he finished, he carelessly flicked the smoldering cigarette butt into a stack of cardboard boxes and walked away. The embers instantly ignited the paper, feeding a blaze that rapidly spiraled into a massive, facility-wide inferno. Open flames and smoking are strictly prohibited in storage areas for this exact reason. Always adhere to designated smoking zones and never discard ignition sources near combustible materials. Another case of high-voltage electric shock occurred when several men used dry bamboo poles to adjust an overhead power line. The moment the poles made contact, they were all electrocuted and fell to the ground. Always keep a safe distance from power lines and never attempt to touch or adjust them with any tool. Only trained electrical professionals with proper equipment should perform this work. The female worker was putting the product into the air compressor when she just put the product on, and before she could pull her hand back, the machine pressed on her hand. Perhaps this machine was illegally modified to increase speed and convenience when working and lost the sensor function. Never bypass safety sensors or guards on machinery. In a workshop, a man flipped a thin metal sheet and the sharp edge sliced into his heel. This incident highlights the importance of staying alert. using proper protective gear and handling materials carefully to prevent avoidable injuries. Two workers entered an older freight elevator enclosed only by exposed metal bars. While chatting on his phone, one man carelessly leaned over the safety rail to look up. The elevator lurched upward, instantly closing the gap between the moving car and the stationary shaft structure. Caught off guard, his neck was crushed between the lift's railing and a metal bar attached to the wall before he could pull back. Freight elevators create deadly shear points that demand total situational awareness inside the cage. Never lean outside a moving lift or allow distractions like phones to compromise safety. An electrical short circuit caused an electrical cabinet in the factory to catch fire. Workers quickly rushed to the scene and extinguished the flames before they spread. Always inspect electrical systems regularly, keep flammable materials away from power cabinets, and shut off the main power immediately in case of fire to prevent serious accidents. While a crane was lifting a steel billet, it snagged another upright billet beside it, knocking it over and smashing into a nearby worker's hand. The suspended load began to swing violently. A co-worker dragged him clear just in time. One step slower, and the outcome would have been very different. The operator began lifting the heavy machine onto the truck, but the load was too heavy for the crane's current radius. As the boom extended, the crane's rear outriggers lifted off the ground. It tipped forward in a catastrophic failure, smashing the machine and the truck bed in a cloud of dust. The load chart isn't just a guide. It's the absolute limit between a successful lift and a total collapse. A crane truck was standing at the edge of a cliff, trying to lift a large rock onto its truck bed. The driver misjudged the position, allowing the crane and the rock to lean too far over the edge. This shifted the center of gravity, causing the entire truck to fall off the cliff. Always ensure heavy equipment is on stable, level ground, and well clear of cliff edges. Understand the crane's load limits and never overextend the boom, as this can easily lead to tipping. A forklift carrying a large stack of plywood was moving north, while the factory manager walked ahead in the same direction. Entering a low visibility area, the driver couldn't see the path because the load blocked his view. The forklift hit the manager, pulling him underneath and dragging him forward until the driver felt abnormal shaking and stopped. Ensure clear visibility and keep all pedestrians away from moving forklifts. One blind spot is enough to run someone down. This man leaned his entire body on a large car tire that was being inflated, and the tire exploded. He was immediately thrown far away. Never lean on or stand directly over a tire while it is being inflated. Use a clip-on chuck and stand at a safe distance, as tires can explode with dangerous force if they fail. A worker prepared to tip a heavy workpiece, utilizing a crane that was both unsuitable for the task and improperly secured. As he operated the controls to engage the hook, the shifting load applied torque that the unstable base could not handle. The rear frame of the crane suddenly detached and collapsed forward, pinning the man underneath the heavy metal structure before he could escape. Structural integrity is the foundation of lifting safety. Never attempt lifts with unverified equipment. Always ensure cranes are properly rated and securely anchored to withstand tipping forces. To rearrange stock. The same thing happened to this man when he was welding a pressurized gas cylinder without wearing any protective gear. The cylinder suddenly exploded, leaving the worker lying motionless on the floor from the blast. Never forget to use proper personal protective equipment, PPE, and follow all safety protocols. In a busy kitchen, two workers' team lifted a heavy pot of boiling water. One lost his grip. The pot tilted, sending scalding water cascading across the tile. His partner slipped on the instant hazard and went down. Transporting such dangers demands more than just manpower. It requires the right tools for the job. A man went to the riverbank to loosen a concrete block and stood directly under the crane's bucket. As the crane moved, the bucket suddenly detached and struck him, causing him to fall. The operator rushed over, and fortunately he was okay. Never stand under a suspended load and always stay clear of heavy equipment. Violating basic safety protocols, he maneuvered the suspended cargo directly over his own position. Without anti-slip devices, the makeshift hook failed to secure the load, causing the massive steel coils to slip and overturn, instantly trapping him underneath. Lifting operations demand certified professionals and certified rigging equipment. Never modify crane hardware, operate without training, or stand within the fall zone of a suspended load. This warehouse stores fire extinguishers on pillars in the middle of the work area, directly in forklift traffic lanes. Because they are small and located in blind spots, drivers can easily collide with them. This video documents 2 separate accidents occurring at the same location in a single day, highlighting a serious safety design issue and the need to relocate or better protect firefighting equipment. A man was attempting to lift a heavy truck ramp to fold it up. The ramp was too heavy and it fell back on him. His colleagues rushed over and pulled him out. Always use proper lifting techniques and ask for help with heavy objects. Ensure that mechanical aids like ramp springs or hydraulics are in good working order before use. While mixing paint in a workshop, a worker's handheld mixer suddenly erupted in flames. His attempts to douse the fire were useless as it rapidly grew, fueled by the flammable liquids. Even simple power tools can become critical ignition sources in vapor-rich environments. Always have the correct fire extinguisher, e.g. dry chemical or CO2, immediately available when working with flammable materials. Distracted by a phone call, a worker leaned in to measure a metal coil on a rolling mill. Wanting a more accurate reading, he made a critical error. He placed his foot inside the machine's path. Instantly, the silent machinery roared to life, dragging him in. He was spun violently, again and again, until a colleague sprinted over, slammed the emergency stop, and pulled his body from the mechanism. Never place any part of your body into machinery, even if it is off. A father and son were driving when their electric bike suddenly malfunctioned. Acrid smoke poured from the floor vents, quickly followed by an intense, erupting fire from the battery pack beneath them. Trapped, they both suffered severe burns before escaping. Always maintain and check your car regularly to avoid such unexpected incidents. A woman was standing near the spindle of a wood planer. Piles of wood nearby became unstable, and as she stepped back to avoid them, she got caught in the planer's spindle. Her co-workers quickly spotted her and stopped the machine. Always maintain a clear work area free of unstable materials and keep a safe distance from all moving machine parts. The worker was standing too close while a coal truck was unloading. As the coal poured out rapidly, he couldn't escape and was buried under it. His cries for help faded as the coal covered him. In places where tons of material fall in an instant, distance is the worker's strongest shield. A man carried a lithium battery into an elevator. As the doors closed, the battery began smoking and then exploded. The man was unable to escape the blast due to the confined space. Always transport damaged or unstable lithium batteries in fire-resistant containers and avoid handling or charging them in enclosed spaces. The workers were welding 2 leaking pressure gas tanks, all of them wearing no protective gear. Then one of the tanks exploded, throwing them far away. Never weld on or near any container that is pressurized or has held flammable materials. Hot work on any container that held flammables requires specialized training and permits. A forklift operator was using a forklift to move iron coils near the base pit of a plate rolling machine. While reversing, the forklift struck a stack of coils on the opposite side of the aisle. Without shutting off the engine or engaging the handbrake, this man left the seat to check the situation. The forklift, still in reverse gear, continued moving on its own. Moments later, the left rear wheel dropped into the base pit, causing the forklift to flip and the safety door to slam onto him with full force. Always stop the engine, apply the handbrake, and secure the gear before leaving a forklift. One lapse can flip a machine and crush its operator. Commuters crowded a busy residential escalator, unaware of critical wear. Suddenly, the steps collapsed, sweeping passengers into the exposed machinery below. Escalators are powerful systems that can fail catastrophically. Strict maintenance is non-negotiable. Always locate the emergency stop button and never overcrowd the steps to ensure public safety. A male worker was using a remote control to operate an overhead crane, moving a heavy metal bar. He was walking along with the load directly underneath it. While still in this dangerous position, he operated the remote to release the bar, causing it to fall directly on him. Never walk directly under a suspended load. Always maintain a safe distance and ensure you are clear of the drop zone before releasing any load. Workers began scaling the side of an apartment building using an old, thin fire escape ladder. As they climbed, the aging metal structure could not support their combined heavy weight and abruptly buckled. The ladder detached from the wall, causing the workers to immediately plummet from a significant height to the ground below. Always verify the load-bearing capacity of climbing surfaces and utilize proper fall protection anchoring to prevent catastrophic failures. A man was standing on a tall stack of boxes, arranging them as a forklift held the next load beside him. Thinking it would be easier to step onto the pallet on the forklift, he shifted his weight to climb over. His foot slipped on the edge, and he fell from a significant height onto the concrete floor. Never climb onto pallets or loads. Forklifts are not platforms. A worker was operating a paper press. The machine required 2 hands to operate, but one switch had been taped down to bypass this safety feature. The worker saw something fall into the machine and bent down to get it out. The machine, still active, pressed down on it. Never bypass safety features on machinery. Always power down and lock out a machine before reaching into it. A man wheeled his e-bike into the elevator alongside other residents. As the door sealed, the bike's battery pack hissed and emitted thick smoke. Before anyone could press the alarm, it erupted in a violent thermal runaway, filling the small, confined space with toxic flames. Stored energy doesn't wait for a safe place to escape. A worker recklessly climbed onto a stack of pallets resting on a forklift's tines. He stood on the unsecured load as the operator began to raise the lift, treating the machine as a makeshift elevator. Suddenly, the unstrapped pallets shifted under his weight and tilted violently. The stack collapsed, sending the worker plummeting to the concrete floor along with the heavy cargo. Forklifts are designed exclusively for materials, never for personnel. Strictly prohibit riding on forks. Always use a certified man basket or aerial lift for working at heights. An employee sorting goods began playfully bouncing on the moving conveyor. He lost his balance as the belt carried him toward a joint, pulling him in. He became pinned between the 2 sections. Machinery doesn't distinguish between work and play. It simply follows its mechanical path. A little girl was riding her bicycle past a warehouse where a truck was backing up. As the 2 approached, her bicycle entered the truck's large blind spot. The truck ran over her, crushing the bicycle. Luckily, the girl fell under the truck and only injured her arm. Always be aware of vehicle blind spots, especially on large trucks. Drivers must check all mirrors and blind spots before backing up. The worker climbed onto the truck bed to adjust the cargo box being lifted by the crane. Suddenly, the crane rope snapped, and the heavy box fell directly onto him. In lifting zones, even one snap can change everything. Distance is protection. A worker stand on an unsecured A-frame ladder to repair a high shop sign, working entirely alone without a harness or a spotter. As he shifted his weight to climb down, he momentarily lost focus and missed a rung. The unsteadied ladder wobbled, and unable to regain his grip, he plummeted from the height directly onto the pavement. Routine tasks often breed complacency that leads to grave injury. Always maintain 3 points of contact, secure the ladder's base, and never work at heights without a second person to assist.